I'm not making this video because I think I'm some expert who has completely figured this out. I haven't. I'm just talking about my own experience because I think there are a lot of people who understand this feeling, but almost nobody really talks about what it feels like from the inside. At first, it seems harmless. You're alone, you're bored, maybe you had a stressful day, maybe you're tired, maybe you don't want to think about whatever is going on in your life for a little while, and your brain basically says, just do this, it will make you feel better. So you do, and for a moment, you get that escape. You stop thinking about school, you stop thinking about responsibilities, you stop thinking about whatever has been bothering you, and that's probably why the habit can become so powerful. Because sometimes you're not really looking for pleasure, you're looking for relief. You're trying to get away from your own thoughts for a few minutes. And I think that distinction matters because when you understand that, you start realizing that the real problem might not be the urge itself, it might be what you're trying to escape from: stress, boredom, loneliness, frustration, anxiety, just having nothing to do. And the strange thing is that more often you use something as an escape, the easier it becomes to automatically reach for it whenever you feel uncomfortable. You don't even have to consciously decide anymore. You just recognize the feeling, and your brain already knows what comes next. That's the part I personally don't like. Not because I think having an urge makes me weak, and not because I think one bad decision suddenly defines who I am. I don't. What bothers me is when I realize I wasn't really choosing, I was reacting. And there is a big difference between those two things. Choosing means I know what I'm doing and I'm okay with this decision. Reacting is more like I felt something uncomfortable and I immediately did whatever would make that feeling disappear. That second one can happen with a lot more than masturbation. It can be your phone, social media, gaming, junk food, constant entertainment, anything that gives you an instant change in how you feel. And that's why I think this conversation is bigger than masturbation. It's really about our relationship with discomfort. We live in a world where you can escape almost anything instantly. Bored, open your phone. Stressed, watch something. Lonely, scroll. Can't sleep, grab the phone. Feeling restless, find something stimulating. And eventually silence starts feeling uncomfortable. Being alone with your thoughts starts feeling uncomfortable. Doing nothing starts feeling uncomfortable. And maybe that's a part of why these habits become so difficult to break. Because the moment things get quiet, we want to fill the silence. I know I've had moments where I wasn't even particularly interested in doing anything. I just wanted to feel different, and that's a weird realization because once you notice it, you start asking yourself, what am I actually trying to change right now? Am I genuinely looking for something, or am I just trying not to feel what I'm feeling? Sometimes the answer is uncomfortable, but I think that discomfort is useful because awareness gives you a choice. You might feel the urge, you might still feel bored, you might still feel stressed, but now there's a tiny gap between the feeling and the action, and that gap matters. That's where self-control lives, not in never having an impulse. You can't control every thought your brain produces. You can control what you do next. And I think that's something I've slowly started to understand. The goal isn't to become some perfectly disciplined person who never struggles. That's unrealistic. The goal is to stop living on autopilot, to notice the pattern, to recognize, okay, I'm stressed right now, okay, I'm bored, okay, I'm looking for an escape, and then maybe just wait, take a breath, stand up, leave the room, go for a walk, do some exercise, take a shower, read, study, listen to music, talk to someone. Or even just sit down for a few minutes and let the feeling exist without immediately trying to get rid of it. The last one is probably the hardest because we're so used to fixing every uncomfortable feeling immediately. But sometimes you don't have to fix the feeling. Sometimes you just have to let it pass. An urge is not an instruction, it's a feeling, and feelings change. That doesn't mean it's always easy. There are going to be moments where you feel completely in control, and there are going to be moments where you don't. There might be times when you fall back into old habits, and I think this is where a lot of people make things worse for themselves. They mess up once, and then they think, well, I already ruined everything, and then one mistake becomes a whole cycle. I don't think that helps. You're not starting from zero every time you make a mistake. You're learning. You're noticing what triggered you. You're figuring out when you're most vulnerable. You're learning what actually helps. That information matters, and I think there's something important about separating guilt from responsibility. Guilt says, I'm a bad person because I did this. Responsibility says, I did something I don't want to keep doing, so I'm going to understand why it happened and make a different choice next time. I'd rather think that way because beating yourself up doesn't automatically create discipline. Understanding yourself does. And maybe that's what the whole process has really been about for me. Learning to understand why I want to escape, learning to sit with boredom, learning to tolerate stress without immediately searching for stimulation, learning that I don't need to start, learning that I don't need to respond to every stimulus, learning that I don't need to respond to every impulse. And honestly, I think that skill goes way beyond that one habit. And honestly, I think that skill goes way beyond this one habit. Because imagine being able to feel stress without immediately reaching for your phone. Imagine being bored without needing a screen. Imagine having a difficult day and still being able to sit down and do the thing you said you were going to do. That's the kind of freedom I actually want. Not some perfect streak, not some number that makes me feel superior to others, just freedom. The freedom to decide where my attention goes, the freedom to be alone with my own thoughts, the freedom to experience discomfort without immediately running from it. And I think that's something worth working toward, because your attention is valuable, your time is valuable, your energy is valuable. And once you realize that, you start becoming more careful about what you give those things. I'm still working on this myself. There are still good days and bad days. There are still moments where I catch myself falling into old patterns, but I'm trying to focus less on being perfect and more on being conscious, more aware, more deliberate, more honest with myself, and maybe that's enough. Maybe progress isn't suddenly waking up one morning and becoming a completely different person. Maybe progress is something much quieter. It's noticing the urge 5 minutes earlier. It's putting the phone down. It's going outside instead. It's going back to your work. It's going to sleep instead of staying up chasing stimulation. It's having one better response than you had yesterday, and eventually the small decisions start adding up. I don't think you need to hate yourself to change. I don't think you need to be ashamed of yourself. And I definitely don't think one habit defines your character. But I do think it's worth being honest about what your habits are doing to your life. Ask yourself a simple question: is this actually helping me become the person I want to be? And if the answer is no, you don't need to panic. You just need to start changing the pattern. One decision at a time, one evening at a time, one urge at a time. Because at the end of the day, I don't want my life to be organized around escaping discomfort. I want to be able to experience life as it actually is: the boring parts, the stressful parts, the lonely parts, the difficult parts, and the good parts too, without needing to constantly escape into something else. So, yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Still learning, still struggling sometimes, still trying to become a little more disciplined and a little more present. Not perfect, just more intentional than I was before. And maybe that's the point: not becoming someone who never has urges, becoming someone who can have an urge and still choose what happens next. To me, that's the real self control.